Another challenging, complex and varied year at the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. Behind the doors of this imposing building in the heart of Whitehall, the considerable business of developing and supporting foreign policy. Security and counter-terrorism remain at the heart of many initiatives, both home and abroad, and a growing need for the Foreign Office to explain across all sectors in Britain the logic and the reasonings behind present policies. So 2008 was the year which saw the Foreign Secretary leading a campaign called Bringing Foreign Policy Home, a campaign to explain just how foreign policy impacts on ordinary life. It was a year in which Mr Miliband travelled across the UK, meeting people of all ages and from all backgrounds to discuss Foreign Office objectives from climate change, economics to conflict prevention. Other ministers too reaching out and explaining schemes to counter violent extremism, fighting radicalism the key of many speeches.
Well, one of the great strengths of Britain is that we are a mirror to the world. The diversity of our population reflects the diversity of the world's population. I think that gives us a real strength as we try to stand up for British values as well as British interests around the world. I think the defining issue is shared risks, and those shared risks can only be addressed by countries acting together. We've seen that in the economic crisis in the last couple of weeks, but it's true on issues of terrorism or climate change or migration. Those are problems that can only be addressed by countries working together, and that is the essence of an effective progressive foreign policy.
There was increased government financial backing to help fight the seeds of extremism.
I do think it's important to get a stronger link between the local work we do and the international aspects of this agenda. In the era of globalisation, what happens in Islamabad or Mogadishu can make a difference on the streets of London. And this summer, I visited Pakistan, India and Bangladesh. It opened my eyes to the historical heritage and the influences on communities here. And I think local projects stand a much better chance of success where they take account of that background of their home communities. And I want to see local authorities again sharing good ideas, how to reach out and work with different communities, whether that's people from Somalia, Nigeria, Iran, the range of different countries that we now have involved.
The cross-exchange of concerns no better illustrated when the Foreign Secretary and his Pakistani counterpart got directly involved in talks with local community officials in Birmingham in the summer. And the continuing importance of Britain's faith communities and communicating with faith community leaders, again shown at the annual Eid celebrations of the Foreign and Commonwealth Office in October.
I hope we can also ensure that our faith communities, notably our Muslim communities, become ambassadors for the sort of Britain and the sort of world we want to create. And one of the things I've been most proud of in the last year and a half as Foreign Secretary is when British Muslims have gone to Bangladesh, to Iran, to Pakistan, as symbols of the sort of equality and worth that we attach to our own Muslim communities, and being able to debunk some of the myths about our own attitudes, but also build the sort of bridges between people that are so important in modern diplomacy.
The messages from ministers develop trust, share responsibilities, build on relationships. This from the UK Home Secretary.
In the long term, the way that we will tackle terrorism is actually by celebrating the values that we share and deterring people from turning to violent extremism in the first place is absolutely fundamental, and it's the strength of what's represented here that gives me faith that we will be able to do that in this country and internationally, to turn against those who want not just to cause death and mayhem, but who actually want to cause division between us in a way that I think the strength of this gathering this evening shows that we're not going to allow to happen.
November saw the Foreign Secretary further north of Bradford. Again, the mission to explain to young people the relevance of foreign policy to everyday lives, and, equally importantly, to hear directly about their concerns and worries. These sessions of listening and learning vital to Mr Miliband. Connections to all groups, all ages. These children concerned about climate change and wanting to talk about Africa and educational connections. There was also, of course, time for a light-hearted opportunity to show that some non-diplomatic skills still remain. But the serious goals still remain, put into perspective by Mr. Miliband himself earlier in the year.
The first great challenge is the rise of international terrorism in a world where weapons proliferation is a serious threat. Countering terrorism does not just mean denying terrorists safe havens, important though that is. It means countering the ideologies and the grievances that attract people to terrorist messages. There is work for us here, both at home and overseas.
Because in the end, politics is about your head, it is about doing things that work, but it's also about your heart. And it's also about the deepest values, about justice and responsibility and citizenship that bring us together.
Just some of the counter-terror initiatives over the past 12 months. More are expected throughout 2009. It should be another busy year.